But for independent developers, like all you guys, I mean, at some point you do have to make a choice about, you can't necessarily develop for every system or develop for, every system at once. When you think about the systems, I mean, which one to you, Peter, right now is where you would want to put, Goddess first?
It's a tough question. Right. I mean, if we were going to do a controller version of Goddess, which is a non-trivial exercise, we've got a list of platforms that we're going to support, and definitely the PlayStation and Xbox are on that list, but they're low down there. Right.
Or PlayStation, now you have PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360, which may be better business propositions for you than these new systems, which are going to have a small install base at the beginning.
Yeah, they're small, for us indie people, they're a small install base. It's tough to get, your head and your engineers around the system and the system architecture, and you kind of feel like, in a sense, just waiting and, seeing how it plays out. Yeah. But I suppose I would have to say it's going to be Xbox just to.
Is that line in your contract?
Yeah.
Your exit deal. No. Greg, what about, I mean, you guys, something like Broken Edge, I mean, you obviously are going to do it on a bunch of platforms, but when you think about these different boxes, I mean, how do you get, when you're sitting there with the spreadsheet and stuff, I mean, how do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think we're really like PC, Steam focused right now. We're excited about both of them, but I think, kind of like Peter was saying, I think we're going to kind of take a step back and see like what the install bases do, how they sell, see where people are buying games, and kind of make the decision there. I also think I just want to see, again, like how they handle discovery and stuff like that. But I think for now it is an interesting thing to talk still about 360 and PS3, just because there's so many of them out there, right? So I don't know, I guess we'll see.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Now, Nathan, you guys you've announced, I guess you're doing a game with Microsoft at least, called Below, which will be, that's Xbox One and 360 or just Xbox One?
Just Xbox One.
Wow, okay, so that's a big bet because it's going to be small install base.
Yeah, we couldn't do what we're doing on Xbox 360. There's global persistence and multiplayer stuff that the infrastructure just isn't there on that platform. And it's funny because we get that question from fans and from press all the time, like, oh, like you're gonna like sim launch, and because the game, like we're not trying to push mad polygons and compete on that front. That's just not our thing. Our thing is tech as a service to creativity. And the stuff that's happening in that game requires, like we could totally roll it on PC, but console-wise, like, we really want to play this game on a couch with a controller. We really want it to be a controller-focused. And then if we decide to take it elsewhere, then we can deal with those issues. But for us, it was the connectivity side of it, the like infrastructure side of it was a huge motivation for putting that game on Xbox One. And it's also, I think that they've done the best job in the last generation of getting consumers to buy downloadable games. And I don't see that necessarily changing. I mean, I think they've built up such a strong following with Xbox Live that more so knows how to actually download through the Minecrafts, through the Braids, through like basically having started the kind of.
That's a great point. I mean, the PlayStation Store is fine, but it's like, what is that even going to look like for PlayStation 4, right? And it's like there are all these things that we haven't seen from both platforms.
But the PlayStation Store is interesting because we had that weird PlayStation Home, didn't we? With the incredible demo with people walking around an apartment, and it was a bit like
Second
Life.
Like a Peter Molyneux demo back
it does.
Today, right?
It does.
It's like, so you're gonna have your own little space,
yes,
with your
that's
own
right.
little plant that will grow over time.
But that kind of faded away, and so it just shows when console manufacturers talk about big features, they maybe they become significant, like Xbox Live, which I agree with you. It is. That was, that predated actually a lot of what iTunes and, well, even Steam, I'm not sure it predated Steam, but it led the way. So, I think it's a smart move to be confident.
Well, it's interesting because like Gabe Newell's talked about how, one day they see Steam as almost becoming like a game or a store where people can have their own little storefronts and whatnot. And maybe you could design your own storefront.
I would, yeah.
How would you sell your game? What would the new Xbox experience look like?
On my store.
Exactly.
Well, I think it would have to be like you see, The British are known as a nation of storekeepers. That's what Winston Churchill said.
There's a little guy who's sweeping away. It's a store.
You'd have me sweeping the front step and scrubbing
Turning the sign,
away,
open for business, right?
cleaning the windows. Here's we got Connect in there now.
Exactly.
I like it.
That's breaking news right there.
That's right. Come on.
We've done it. You're desperate for us to kickstart.
And you'd have your little dog, right? The Fable dog would be in your store, right? Because he's not going to be in the game anymore, right?
It would have to be a dead dog. You'd have to have died on the door.
Morbid.
Well, you don't want one of those street dogs, do you?
I think you would be a great storekeeper.
Thank you.
The new Xbox experience. But yeah, I mean, we joke about it, but that's all stuff that I think is really important, especially to indies. It's like, how is this stuff going to be discovered? And as you mentioned, the marketing piece of it, I'm sure, Nathan, part of it for you is like Microsoft, obviously, is investing in sort of marketing. And I mean, you were on stage at E3. I mean, it's a big initiative for them.
It is, for sure. And I think both platforms really have done a lot to promote independent titles for their consoles. And that's super meaningful, for sure. But I think it all comes down to storefront promotion. That's point of sale. How big of a banner do you get? How enticing is it to the end consumer? Because for all we talk about, ways of getting games out there, being up on stage on E3 was amazing, and Phil Spencer's been a huge supporter of the game and of the studio, and to see him up there in a Cappy shirt was one of those
I was hoping you were maybe going to be wearing your Xbox One shirt to return, but.
I hope that's not true, though, right? Like, I hope it doesn't all come back down to being featured. I mean, there's so many examples now with like Amazon or something where it's like, I buy a game, these are games I might like, or my friend is playing this game, or you're playing this game, this is something else. I'm hoping that they do a better job of putting stuff in front of me that they think I'll like.
Right, versus even iTunes now, it's sort of like, unless you get that, hero, editor's choice every week, it's hard to sort of discover that stuff. And you're right, if you could say like, hey, Greg played this game. There's even a thing I do now on Twitter, this thing called Magic Rex, which sort of shows if like 4 or 5 of your friends follow someone, it'll alert you. And it's really interesting to see you discover things that I would never even know are on there. But it's like, 4 or 5 people that I know followed this person, so it might be a reason to follow that person. It's like that kind of thing, as you said, would be amazing if, you 3 guys bought a game that I hadn't heard of. Alert me to that. That would you discover something brand new.
But it all happens on the store. Right. I think that was my main point, was that like we all spend so much time publicly promoting stuff, and it has huge value. Double Fine has done one of the best jobs, I think, in the history of games in building a community that way, of being out there, of discussing and growing a studio based off of that. But at the same time, there's just we're kind of preaching to the choir, and then there's that other mass of the audience that don't come to PAX, that still are used to GameStop, that need to kind of find games that way. And the discoverability methods, being on the storefront, that's their entry point to all of our games. And hopefully there's a hell of a lot of access to videos immediately on store pages. Hopefully, we're not just looking at a single screenshot. I mean, if Sony rolls Gaikai well, being able to watch your friends on streams while you're looking at the store page for that game is a giant buy like that. I think there's a lot of really, with the technology comes all these opportunities to create more intimate buying experiences, more enjoyable buying experiences, and when that happens, we're all going to win, whether it's a AAA $60 game or a $2 toy game.
It's still a fundamental problem, though, isn't it? Because you've got people who are releasing games and they're going to spend, 10, 20 million bucks on trying to get, tens of millions of people to play it. And us as indies have to, in some way, compete with that. Mm-hmm. I totally agree with you. And it's amazing to me that it's taken this long to get a recommendation system which is meaningful to me personally. Mm-hmm. Because, if one of you in this room said, "Oh, have you played X?" I'm far more likely to go and play X. And that's the most meaningful marketing message. But that's still going to have to compete with the sort of roaring thunder of, Call
the storekeeper in your store comes up to you and whispers, "Peter,
that's it.
Yes, a great game that you'd love to play." Future. All right, well, when we come back in the bonus round, we've got more with Peter, Greg, and Nathan.